serve, right? So we opened on April 12, 2008, and that was following 4 years of, who knew it was going to take that long, or that the city staff wasn't going to really support us. But the mayor, imagine a mayor today making a task force of 35 people and saying, hey, we can't make this park pencil out. That's why we were going to give it to Bechtel and Shell. And if you can, more power to you. And he asked 35 people to see how we could do that. And so we did, and near the end of it, my friend said to me, you know, it's never going to be anything, your report, if you don't get a consultant to make it an official report of the city of Vallejo. So I hammered away on the city assistant city manager until he agreed to take $100,000. It wasn't really that, it was around $70,000, and put out a request for proposals. And a company came in from Sacramento who had been, the president was the former state parks director, Pete Dangerman, in Jerry Brown the first administration. Now, what Pete had going for him, besides being a state parks director, was he had this novel entrepreneurial way of operating parks that we were already writing about in our report. So it was perfect. So the city didn't have any money. The Greater Vallejo Recreation District didn't want the property. They didn't have a wildlands park managing element. And those of you like Kristen and, well, Jessica grew up at least in Berkeley, in the East Bay, you take East Bay Parks for granted, yes. I think, because it was founded in 1920 something, and is Alameda and Contra Costa counties parklands. And you know, right across the bay, we can see from our preserve, 2,600 acre former munitions or explosives park called Point Pinole. And it's incredible, it's mind-blowing. It's half of Mare Island in size. Then we had someone come visit us yesterday and come through our park with us, walk around and say, you know, we're from the Trinity Alps. Do you know where that is? Between, you know, Redding and Fortuna. And they have a 13,000 acre park that he referred to as their Central Park. Our friends were just up in Chico, Bidwell Park, 3,000 acres. You know, this is just typical. And yet Vallejo, here we had arranged in our Mare Island reuse plan and the specific plan both to have this be parkland. And the minute the city got title to it, 2002, within seconds, probably the same day they got title, they announced that they were transferring it to Bechtel Corporation and Shell Oil Company as the West Coast first liquefied natural gas tanker terminal and 1,500 megawatt power plant. Oh. To imagine what a 1,500 megawatt power plant is, the Crockett cogeneration plant is 100 megawatts, and that serves CNH sugar and processes steam through the refining process, creates their power for them, and then goes out on the grid with, you know, leftover power or power as its demand. And so that didn't take this town less than a year, and we sent them packing. We just couldn't believe that this is the way city was going to sell us down the river, so to speak.
I can't even believe they're allowed to.
Well, it doesn't matter. Our city pushes the envelope any chance they get. They're just, the pressure from developers is tremendous. It's unfathomable.
But usually when the feds give you something, you gotta use it right.
Well, the feds, you know, they didn't really care. If they could get the city to get a plan together and they could offload it to them, they didn't have any control. They might have cared deeply, but they didn't have any control, and they didn't care. They just did not care. So the mayor de jour, the mayor at that moment, founded this 35-person committee.
Who was the
I
mayor?
can't imagine
Intensely.
I cannot imagine today doing that. Any mayor having the nerve or guts to do that. But I believe that many small, almost like cottage industry advisory groups should exist to at least advise the mayor. Because the mayor and the council are themselves so overworked, little pay, if any. They don't have the time to go out and do the research. They're doing their own full-time job, usually somewhere in the world, and they can't trust staff. We can't trust staff to be on our side. Staff seems to be another entity altogether, and it seems to have always been that way. Fighting the town, fighting against what you hope good things will happen, and suddenly you wake up to the news that all your hard work is just down the drain. So 4 years of sitting on that plan, working on that plan, working with the consultant, getting it complete, gave us the confidence and the assurance that we had the perfect plan for this property. It was going to be organically developed. It wasn't going to be operated. We had no regional park district, the only county in the Bay that doesn't. It was Greater Vallejo Recreation District didn't want it. Couldn't imagine managing it. Their board voted unanimously against taking it over. And one of the reasons is because it doesn't have any any assessing ability. The state lands claim on the land. There was a land swap. That's a little complicated, but once the state lands has a public trust overlay on a property, either by reversion or by it never having lost it or by it settling to trade like it did with the North Island to the South Island, you cannot assess it a tax on that property because it's part of the fabric of the state of California. So this park is open for the enjoyment of all Californians.
But it is state land?
It is state lands, granted land, by an unusual agreement to overlay the public trust onto hillside land that's above the shoreline. It would normally have been the waters, the navigable waters of California, the sovereign lands, the former waterways.
Was that what Robin was saying this morning, that they traded the dock area for the hill or something? Is that?
Yeah, well, it was the north end of the island, part of it for the south end. So anyway, here we are. So one of the conditions that the task force and later another governance committee that most people don't know about, that council that night in December of 2007 actually appointed another body. It was an advisory body that began meeting in March. Maybe they didn't do it that night, but maybe a couple of months later. March of 2008, completed our report in August of 2008, and that was recommending a governance model. You can imagine that while it was really great that we put a report together about how the property should be used and how it could be managed and how it could generate revenue for itself, it was a whole different matter to say, well, who's going to get it? Who's going to get to have the right or the responsibility to manage that land? So that governance committee, which I was the co-chair of, recommended to the council that we have a new nonprofit made, and that we operated as a nonprofit organization in partnership with the city of Vallejo and any other partners we could scramble. And that's what we've done. We founded the Mare Island Heritage Trust in September 2009. We'd already opened it in April of 2008. We were open one day a month, the second Saturday of the month. And much like now, I think we were open maybe 10 to 5 or something like that. And then when the city increased our insurance requirements to $4 million, no one carries a $4 million policy, liability policy. I announced to my volunteers, hey, look, do you think that we should be open one day a month and pay that kind of insurance premium? And it was like, I don't know, 4,000 or 6,000 a year. It went up a couple thousand over what we pay now, which is close to 4,000. And so of course not. So open Friday, Saturday, Sunday, beginning in October of 2010, and my volunteer force disappeared on me. One day a month versus every 3 days a week.
That's a lot, yeah.
Boom, they were gone. But that's okay, because new volunteers came to take their place, and the public was better served. And here comes Astro Botanicals, our next feature in our 13th anniversary party. Anyway, that's the history of how we came to be the managers of the property for a dozen years. And by the way, we held the first public event in August of 2007. Jaime Espy is videoing me a little bit today on his phone for this, but I will say that he has a fabulous video that's on his Facebook page, I'm quite sure, of that first event. You have to fathom that was the first time the public had been through that gate in 150 years. 150 years. And it was a really exciting day. National Park Service staff was here, the regional superintendent, Martha Lee, Boy Scouts, you know, the mayor, the congressman's aide, blah, blah, blah. And the neat thing was we had outings all throughout that weekend. We had 1,100 people out who had to go through like a pass to get onto the property. So we already knew we were onto something, right? We were confident by then. And so things have gone along. One of the challenges has been getting enough revenue in through our donation system, and so we depended totally on people giving us things, from shipping boxes for storage that the ferry people gave us when they upgraded from shipping boxes for maintenance facility to a $30 million maintenance facility. We've just received everything you can fathom, and including having a beekeeper come to us, and so then we were able to sell honey, and then having a fennel pollen harvester, Wildcraft Collected, come to us, and then we traded out our pollen that was harvested off of our plants, you know, for retail sale. We just, anything we could think of, and get people out here like we're doing today. Look at this is an event, and all I did was sit there and think, okay, what 3 things could we kind of do on this 13th birthday party. Hello. So what about the history of the place? Oh, and so we're at an impasse right now. We got to be, so we're really at a big impasse right now because the city kicked us out. Now, the very people who the city manager tasked with harassing us out of our job and locking those gates on us are the people who are suing the city manager for all these improprieties. They were his top level staff he had assigned to kick us out. Now, the most telling statement made by a upper management city staffer was the fire chief on his first day here in January of 19, when he stated, things are going to change around here. Rich people are buying the island, and they don't like the way you run this park. Well, tens of thousands of other people didn't mind the way we ran this park. In fact, our consultant, Pete Dangerman, from 2007, the city's consultant, he called me and said, I've had a call from some friends of yours in Alaska, and they can't believe you've been kicked out of your park, and that plan that we created with you is being challenged by your city manager. I'm going to meet with you. He's met with me a dozen times. He was willing to offer his services for free to respond to the city's request for qualifications. Really? He believed that whole thing was a ruse. It was not for real, it wasn't legitimate, and that what we were doing was legitimate. We have a proof of, it's more than a concept. We have a proof of business model that works. The public gave over about $500,000 over those 12 years we were open, and in kind and equipment was around $4 million is our estimate. So we're going to have to figure this out as a community, and it's foolish for the city to have walked away from our resources and what we could bring to the table. But we'll just continue to hold these events and try to support the public, though we get no income in now, so that's a serious problem. So we can't, it's difficult for us to do our service even if we aren't managing the property. But we're seeing the property very quickly decline because, why? For the last 3 weekends, we have intercepted copper thieves, we call them, melding into the parking lot as if they're part of the crowd, carrying their tools in their backpacks and walking in and spending the day in the Navy property, our birthright, the property that we will receive in the next rest of the transfers from the Navy as those parcels become available, and they're being wrecked and destroyed and thieved, and it's wrong. And we're just not able to be at our visitor center dock watching and observing who's coming and going, and we're watching 30 motorcycles drive through. We're watching quads drive through. We're watching a couple today saying, well, where can we ride? Well, you go in the parking lot and you walk. And the next thing you know, you saw them driving up this back road. And I'm yelling and screaming. Oh, he says, I just took a wrong turn. No, you didn't. If I hadn't been here, you would have been wandering all over the golf course. There's no one here with eyes on the park. And when good people are here, bad people tend to shy away. But they're bold when no good people are here. And so the city just comes and opens and closes the gate if they remember to. Yesterday morning, another phone call. My number's not on the gate anymore. They cut down, chainsawed down 14 wayfinding signs worth information signs worth $45,000 if they had not been donated. And they've just stripped out like $60,000 worth of our equipment and supplies, threw those in the city dump. I'm told by employees what happened, and they just were hauling it out in semi-trucks and on Facebook Living it a year ago this coming May.
What would they take in from where?
Everything. Everything.
Did they get into your
No, those are locked up with K-rail in front of all the doors. But no, we're talking everything that you don't see along the road now and everywhere was just put in a city dump. Stripped the visitor center outside, everything.
But you're talking about, is this the
So
city
I'm
business,
going to
or is this
just
the-
go on. I'm not going to answer that question because it's very evident that there's absolutely nothing of anything we had there. It's all gone, and we documented it, yet who's going to help us sue? So let's go to the history of the property and what we think the future is, okay? Because I'll take only about 5 more minutes on that. Because I don't need to tell you about the property except for to know that it is the Navy's oldest ammunition depot in the Pacific. It was founded in 1857 by also Commander Farragut, the first admiral of the U.S. Navy. He had started Mare Island as a shipyard in 1854, and then by 57 he figured out that this hilly area would make a great natural, what's called natural revetment for the safe, protective way of protecting munitions in magazines and bunkers using the hillsides carved out and protecting from explosions from the next guy and the next guy around the next building. It was closed in 1975. It did manufacturing of munitions, disposal, open burn, open detonation, transport, and storage. So building it, storing it, repairing it, or refurbishing it, and then transporting it onto ships on the piers to head out to the Pacific. So what are you going to do with a property like that? Well, the city of Vallejo had this outrageous idea in May of 2019 that they would put out a request for qualifications, sometimes called a request for proposal, an RFP. This was an RFQ, and that they were going to entertain a proposals or multiple proposals from anyone who could figure out how to bring and had the interest in bringing 51 ammunition buildings up to modern building standards and investing their money all by themselves. The city wasn't going to partner like they are with, say, Costco, where they bought the property for $7 million so that Costco could then build on it. There was not going to be any city money put into it like there is here on Mare Island, for example. It sounded cockamamie, and I was happy enough to have one of our campers, a really important source of funding for the park. It brought about $90,000 in 2 years, so that we could do a lot of things that we weren't able to do otherwise, including having 7 porta potties in the park. That means a lot to some of us that got cleaned every week. So that seems to have all dissembled. What we're looking at today is the same thing we were looking at from 2003 to 7. We don't think that industrial is a fit for this intensely residential and commercial part of the bay, the North Bay. It used to be an industrial alley all the way, past Benicia, Martinez, and on up. And more and more, those industrial operations are closing, like Tesoro, the refinery, the oldest refinery in the bay, and then Hercules Pacific Refining's gone, and now it's just houses. And Point Pinole, all that big regional park used to be all those explosives manufacturing, nitroglycerin and dynamite and all of that. So it's logical that this industrial operation converts to something. Well, because you have the state lands claim on a majority of all of the floor that will come into the preserve, and you have restrictions there on housing, and then you have the ammunition depot overlay, which is restrictions on housing, and in fact not even you can't even, I don't think, use hiking sticks. They don't want any penetration of the soil. What's going to be the best use of the property? What we thought of in the reuse plan, in 1994. Park. How are you going to make that happen? The simplest way I can think of is getting us back in, getting our partners in, and what a timely manner was. So we segue to the mayor's comments on the preserve. It makes sense that because he's just arrived, it just makes sense that it's park. That none of the developers are thinking, we've absolutely got to move houses in there. They can't. They're forbidden from having houses for 2 reasons. Are you leaving, Peter? Yeah. The state lands prohibition on it, plus the prohibition through ammunition. So why not do some really exotic, fun, interesting things with the park property? For instance, this zip line I suggested on our really steep lands that we have. How about camping inside bunkers? They're mosquito free with mosquito net on the windows and doors. Glamping, you can have yurts inside there. Families can rent the entire place, or maybe a biking group. We've already proven that could work. And so maybe you're going to have other agricultural uses like mushrooms or sprouts or cheeses or wines or whatever. But how many of those can you have? On the other hand, camping, hip camp, which we had for 2 years, people who were running a hip camp in 19 got triple the sales, triple the use in 20 during COVID. So I just think there's a really interesting opportunity here, but if we don't jump on it, first of all, copper thieves are going to have it destroyed, all the flashing gone, all the houses destroyed, windows broken. It's going to be expensive to replace. And if we keep on trying to do these surprise tactics and throw organizations that have invested off their feet, then it's not going to ever be a practical and legitimate business like our models, which was Fort Mason in San Francisco and Golden Gate National Recreation Area and Skyline Wilderness Park in Napa. Two very successful self-sustaining parks, and those were our models, and we stand by those models. And camping, for example, is a low-hanging fruit. It's low impact, and that's what we'll be looking for. We'll be looking for biking, hiking, and we won't be looking for metal detecting in that property. So that's why it's so important to engage the public, why you have nonprofit partners who operate the property with you. The Public Works Department has no business, and I think you'll agree with me, operating a preserve. And we use the name preserve for the nature and for the history, for the archaeology, for the cultural landscapes, for this whole combination of really unique, unusual features that are found no place else in the world. You know, and people say, well, it's only 150 acres, or it's only going to be 300 acres. No, it's about 200,000 acres that you can see and experience, you know, from the top of that hill, right? And then if we can work with the neighbors, you know, as the new developers, the new owners of the golf course, that will be an interesting opportunity as well. So.
Yeah.
He's a quasi-public official.
Oh, yeah, no, I think you're the real deal.
No, you are.
We're so delighted today to have Mayor Robert McConnell with us at our 13th.
Well, I couldn't go by without coming out wishing you happy birthday and all your friends.
Yes.
This wonderful location.
It's our new and improved evening park, Robert.
Uh-huh.
When we get kicked out at 5 o'clock by City Public Works, what do they know about being in a park? I mean, we had it open until an hour after sunset.
Uh-huh.
So we just moved outside the gate, and you can see a pretty fun party this afternoon.
Yeah, you can still walk around and enjoy the beautiful air.
Yeah,
Settings.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
there's a lot to preserve other than just closing a gate.
That's right, that's right. And thank your office for getting the gate open yesterday morning. Typical of the Public Works Department, I'm hating to say, I get phone calls many Friday morning, Saturday morning, Sunday morning saying, what happened? Why is the gate not open? And so your department, your mayor's office helped us a great deal yesterday morning in getting it open. So thank you.
All that credit has to go to the administrative assistant, Mary. He's right on top of things.
All right.
He's a huge support and help for me.
Over your shoulder is Astro Botanicals beginning to set up for an evening. Bye, Zach.
Good to see you. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing.
There was one of my volunteers walking by. He's, you know, these are the people who keep this preserve, 1,000 stewards. He got a hold of me with some photos very late Wednesday night or late afternoon Wednesday. He works the night shift, and he almost always opens our San Pablo Bay Trail in the morning. And he found a bunch of vandalism. And he sent photos, and in an hour, Weston Solutions was up doing repair to the trail and to the fences. So there he goes, walking his way home.
Yeah, Weston Solutions been out here for a long time. They're a good corporate citizen. They step up to the plate and they help out a lot. They have for a long time.
They sure have for a long time. They were here as Navy contractors for 15 years, but have a 35-year contract with you, the city of Vallejo, to manage the landfill and the trail that's adjacent to it.
Well, we're fortunate to have them.
Yes,
We
yes,
really
yeah,
are.
yeah,
People
we
like
are.
that are hard to find and highly appreciated when you do.
Well, it's so thrilling to have you out, Mr. Mayor. I know you've been a supporter and fan of this preserve from day one, and I think that you, more than anyone in city government and representation, you understand what it takes for a community to operate its own park in partnership with an agency, and you've seen it in real life here, and you appreciate it, I think.
Well, coming from the mountains where you have that relationship with the United States Forest Service all the organizations that maintain the woods so they don't burn down or get trashed.
Yeah.
Well, I highly appreciate something like this in an urban setting because it's surprising when you come out here and you see urban children that have never been in the mountains.
Yeah.
Like where you and I grew up.
Yeah.
And their eyes just are ablaze. It's like seeing a new world for the first time.
Yeah, and really, yet so close by
to
their own home.
It needs to be more utilized, and hopefully we can do that.
Well, I think the utilization is pretty obvious. By the way, we've lost Facebook connection, Facebook, but we understand that you can still hear us. You maybe just can't see us. But I'm just going to show you that. Well, maybe you can't see it, but these are all the cars and all the people, and there's baby Jenny Lee, and her dad is getting ready to do a barbecue for us. They're from the community of folks who have been harmed by the killings by police of their young people. And so they're out here doing a barbecue with us, and it just takes this village thing.
It does. In fact, I'm going to have to run on because I've got a meeting with some people from the Vallejo project. We're working on some youth projects as well.
Oh, good.
That's how we make this city work.
There you go. Well, thank you for stopping by, and we'll look forward to working more closely with you in the city in the future.
Well, we definitely are going to look forward to it.
All righty.
Thanks so much, and happy birthday to the preserve. All right.
Thank you.
Come on out and see it.
It's 5 o'clock and the park should be open for anyone that wants to come and enjoy the preserves, but as you can tell, it's nice and sunny and it's closed. Not good. People should be enjoying it until sunset.